I want to share a quick tip I learned on masking people in portrait photography. Masking is probably the best way, hands down, to make a subject stand out in a photograph, especially when you're doing portraits for people. And Lightroom has a great tool to select people automatically. Usually it works pretty darn flawlessly, but every once in a while, there's just something that goes wrong that you need to watch out for. And when you catch this and correct it, it really adds that extra level of professionalism to your photograph. So let's look at just a couple of them and go through this. I'm going to show you quickly what I'm talking about here in this example. So if I go down to our masking tool here on the right, Lightroom is going to scan for people in the image. And once it does that, it's going to find a person. So we're just going to go ahead and select that person, and we're just going to build the mask. But you can see here that it's selecting a lot of this sky and this blowing hair, and that's going to be a bit of a problem. So if we create this mask for this person, and let's say that we wanted to select the background to really make this subject stand out, one of the tricks that I use, and maybe you use this too, and if not, you should give it a try because it can be really effective. But to take your person mask, hit these little three dots here, and then duplicate and invert the mask. So what that's going to do is select the entire background. And then you can move that exposure down, but look at the hair. Obviously, we have a problem here. So the more we change that exposure down, the more that's going to be apparent. Obviously, this is too extreme. Don't do that. But I just wanted to get that point across that when we select a person, especially if there's hair or clothing or some other type of thing happening in the picture that the mask just doesn't get correctly, you're going to run into this, and it happens more often than you think. So when you do mask a person, zoom in and look at the details, because you will notice stuff like that. And if we look closer here, we can see that it's happened on top of her head here. And in this case, it seems to be mostly affecting the sky. So if we look down here, it's like we are in good shape. We're in pretty good shape. So how do we get rid of that? Very, very simply. So let's take off this mask, just pretend that didn't happen yet. So then we're dealing with just this mask one of this person. I can show overlay so you can see what we're talking about. The quickest way to do that in this example is to just go to subtract and subtract sky. And this is going to do a pretty nice job. It's not going to be absolutely perfect, but it's going to do a really nice job. So you can see in just a moment, look at that. It did a really nice job of getting rid of that. So then if we again duplicate and invert this mask, it's not going to be perfect. There's still more that we could do in there, but it's going to be significantly better. So that's one quick example of a way to get rid of that. I also want to show you an example in this photograph here. So once again, if we select this person and select and create mask, you can see what it did here is selected the area between her arm and her body. So all of this area in here is selected as part of that person. And obviously we don't want to do that. So we can do the select sky trick again, or we're just going to deselect the entire person mask. And then watch this. Like when we just go in here one by one and we select her clothes, it's a really nicely done mask on her clothes. We can select her hair, again, nicely done. And then teeth, lips, iris, eyes, all of that we're going to select anyway, even though this person is at a distance, so we really don't see that stuff close up. We'll add those anyway. And then we're going to select body skin and facial skin. So we're just going to select everything individually instead of entire person. But when we select everything individually, look at that. It does not select the area between her arm and her body. So that can be a super helpful trick. And that's the one that I was really excited about because that saved me some time. And just create a mask that is much more refined on a first try than selecting the entire person and then removing bits and pieces that don't make sense. You can do this creating separate masks out of each of these. In this case, I wouldn't do that. I would just create one mask. So then it's going to create the one with all of these individual pieces underneath it. And then we're good to go from there. We can add highlights, we can warm her up, we can do whatever we feel like we need to do. We can decrease the shadows on her a little bit. And then we can still do our three dots and our duplicate and invert. And then once we have that inverted, we're still going to have access to decrease the exposure or the highlights or however we want to control this photograph from here. So just a super quick, easy way to really refine the person masks when you're doing portrait photography. That's it. I hope that you've learned something. I hope that you've had some fun. Thank you so much for hanging out with me for these couple of minutes. I know this is a quick one, but I just was excited and wanted to share that. So hope you'll subscribe to the channel, and I will see you next time.